Episode 10 of Behind the Line. I'm your host, KC. Follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Hit the like and subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure you click that bell and hit the notifications button to receive all notifications from the channel. We are absolutely on fire right now with our NFL bets. 5-0 last week, went 4-1 this past weekend. Made up for our slow start, now sitting at 11-9 on the year. Had a pretty good weekend in our college football plays too. Went 2-1 on Saturday, sitting right around 500 in college football, 7-1 on the year. We've got a stacked show today. The good, the bad, and ugly is loaded for today's show, especially the ugly. I've got a major issue that's going on that I'm going to bitch about at the end of the show. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk about my New Orleans Saints. You know I could not lead off the show today without talking about my New Orleans Saints and the game against the Dallas Cowboys. I told you guys on Saturday's show that the Saints defense is real. I said do not be fooled by the stats. Don't listen to these talking heads on ESPN that know nothing about this team. I told you this defense was real. I told you don't buy into Dallas, that they haven't played anyone all season. I told you that if the Saints could shut down Ezekiel Elliott, that this Dallas offense was vulnerable. And I was fucking right. My Saints completely dominated the Cowboys last night on Sunday Night Football. If Drew Brees were healthy and if he were playing in that game, it would have been a complete blowout. Ezekiel Elliott was a non-factor. Dennis Allen and the Saints defense gave the league a blueprint on how to beat the Dallas Cowboys. They proved that all you have to do to beat this Cowboys team is neutralize Zeke. What I've been saying this entire podcast since I started doing this 5 or 6 weeks ago. I have said it repeatedly that Dak Prescott has to have an efficient running game in order to be successful. We saw what happened Sunday night when Dallas struggles to run. Dallas only had 257 yards of total offense. Zeke was 35 yards of that. Coming into this game, the media was fawning all over Dallas. Every pregame show I watched on Sunday morning, these so-called analysts were picking the Cowboys to win this game. And I couldn't understand why. I told you on Saturday that the Saints were going to win this game. Dallas's first 3 opponents had a combined 1 win between them before the Giants won last week at Tampa Bay. They had the easiest schedule in the league to open this season. So of course Dak Prescott looked incredible against the Dolphins and the Redskins. Those teams are fucking awful. They can't score. Defense is atrocious. It's not hard to look good when you've got 5 seconds in the pocket to throw and everyone is wide open. Not only did the Saints neutralize Zeke, quarterback Marshawn Lattimore completely took Amari Cooper out of the game. He had 5 catches for 48 yards. I was a little concerned, though, about something that was mentioned during the game. I believe it was Chris Collinsworth who brought this up. He was discussing the early season struggles of Lattimore with Saints defensive coordinator Dennis Allen sometime throughout the week leading up to the game. Marshawn Lattimore has given up more yards than anyone in the NFL so far this season. Allen told him that Lattimore plays up or down to his opponent when Collinsworth brought this up to him. If he's going up against a receiver that's perceived to be weak or not elite like an Amari Cooper or a Mike Evans in Tampa, somebody like that, he's lazy and he's not as prepared. When going against an elite receiver, though, Lattimore steps up his game. He has the motivation and the preparation throughout the week. This was even mentioned in the post-game interview on the field with Marshawn Lattimore. Basically, he acknowledged that this sentiment was true. I've got a real problem with this. This isn't the NBA where you've got 82 games on the schedule. You've got 16 games in an NFL season. The margin of error in the NFL is razor thin. That's why you have a team like Carolina who can be 0-2. Their starting quarterback in Cam Newton goes down, and second-year quarterback Kyle Allen comes in, and all of a sudden the Panthers are 2-0. Get a huge road win yesterday at Houston. These teams, the way this league is set up, everybody is on an even playing field. So one play here or there throughout the season could mean the difference between a win or a loss. And at the end of the year, that game could mean the difference between winning your division, clinching a number 1 seed, or even whether or not you make the playoffs or not. You cannot have your best corner playing up or down to his opponents. In my opinion, this is something that's got to be addressed by Sean Payton and Dennis Allen going forward. Now, thank God the Saints defense showed up Sunday night, because Teddy Bridgewater was god-awful. He can't throw the ball downfield. These little dink and dunk passes are going to catch up to the Saints eventually. Bridgewater's inability to throw the ball 20-plus yards makes it too easy for opposing defenses. Not having to worry about the deep balls allows them to blitz heavily, stuff the box, contain Alvin Kamara. It just makes it way too easy when you're only having to defend 15 yards and up in front of you. Bridgewater was sacked 5 times against Dallas, and most of them were his fault. You can't hold the ball for 5 fucking seconds in the NFL and expect the offensive line to hold up. It's just not going to happen. Slow delivery, too much hesitation. One play, I think it was on a 3rd down. And Teddy Bridgewater had 10 or so yards of open space in front of him to run for the 1st down. Instead, he hesitates. He pump fakes like a fucking idiot 3 or 4 times. I don't know who he was pump faking for, because no one fell for it. And he takes a fucking sack. It's just inexcusable. He almost lost this game for the Saints. Saints are in field goal range. 3rd down, under 2 minutes to go. You're in the 4th quarter. Dallas has 1 timeout. All you need is a 1st down. Worst case is you throw an incomplete pass, you run the ball, make Dallas force Dallas to use their last timeout. You do anything but take a fucking sack. What does Teddy Bridgewater do? He runs back 10 or 15 yards and takes a fucking sack at midfield. Knocks the Saints out of field goal range. Now you've got to punt the ball in a 2-point game and give Dallas the ball back. And once again, lean on your defense that had carried this team the entire night. If it weren't for the Saints defense being so dominant, and especially stopping Dallas on that final drive, all we would be talking about right now is how game manager Teddy Bridgewater lost this game for New Orleans. Overall, though, I got to admit, Bridgewater and the offense did just enough to win this game. Drew Brees is hoping to come back earlier than expected. It can't be soon enough at this point. Schedule gets a bit easier for New Orleans over the next few weeks. Dallas, on the other hand, we're about to see what the Cowboys are really made of. The easy schedule is no more. Schedule over the next 6 weeks is brutal. Packers at home, at Jets, that'll be an easy one. But then you've got the Eagles at home, at New York, Giants, Vikings at home, and at Detroit. The Detroit Lions are real. I mean, they gave Kansas City all they could handle yesterday. Dallas could realistically lose 4 of those games or go 3-3. They might go 4-2, but that's a brutal stretch. We'll know by early November whether or not the Cowboys are real. But like I said before the season began, I don't think this is a playoff team. I don't think Dallas, to be honest, I don't think they're the best team in the NFC East right now. I think it's the Philadelphia Eagles. But, all right, let's move on. Let's get to the good and bad and the ugly for the weekend. The good. Maybe Skip Bayless was right and I was wrong. Perhaps Baker Mayfield really does thrive off of controversy. Maybe he does use it for motivation. because he came out Sunday and had one of the best games of his career on the road against the Baltimore Ravens. I really expected Baltimore to win this game easily. I didn't have them in my plays for you guys. I had them in my pool play. Line was something like 6.5 or 7 points. Normally don't like to swallow that many points, but with the way the Browns have been playing, I figured Baltimore would dominate this game, but Cleveland completely ran away with this thing. Baker Mayfield was exceptional. 342 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Running back Nick Chubb had a career day, 165 yards and 3 touchdowns. One of those being a long run in the second half that pretty much put the game away. This was the Browns offense that we've been hearing about all offseason. They finally showed up to play. Only took 4 weeks. All it took was one little comment by Rex Ryan to get this team motivated. Believe it or not, as bad as the Browns have been, this team is in first place in the AFC North. What the fuck does that say about that division? A division historically dominated by Baltimore and Pittsburgh. I'll admit that Cleveland looked great yesterday, but this still, in my opinion, is not a playoff caliber team. The AFC North might be the worst division in football after 4 weeks. Pittsburgh's down. Big Ben's out for the year. The Bengals are still the Bungles. Baltimore's lost 2 in a row. Could the Cleveland Browns actually win this division? I think they come back to earth next week against the 49ers. I know Baker Mayfield came out after the game and said that Rex Ryan's comments had nothing to do with how they played on Sunday, but I find that hard to believe. They look like a team on a mission. The problem with that, though, there isn't going to be something like this in the media every week to provide extra motivation. Now, I have no doubt in my mind that Baker Mayfield will try to create controversy. He's a master at that. But is using that as motivation really a good long-term plan for winning? Baltimore, on the other hand, I don't know about this defense. This team has been decimated the last 2 weeks. Gave up 33 points to Kansas City last week. Never really were in that game the entire second half. Then follow that up by giving up 40 points to the Cleveland fucking Browns. Are you kidding me? I thought about including this in the bad portion, but I'm just going to go ahead and mention it now. I don't know what's going on with the play calling of Baltimore, but John Harbaugh's lost his fucking mind. He's made a habit of going for 2-point conversions this season, and I don't understand why. They're only making 25% of them. Sunday, they score a touchdown to cut Cleveland's lead to 8 points. You kick the extra point, right? Cut the lead to 7. Not if you're John Harbaugh. He goes for 2. Now, Baltimore made it for the first time this season, but it's still a bad fucking call. You finally built some momentum. You miss that and give it back to the Browns. All your momentum is lost. I don't understand it. The failed 2-point conversions are what killed them in the Kansas City game. Then in the fourth quarter, they're down 12 points. It's 3rd and 6. They run the ball up the fucking middle. Really? That's your best play call? I could not believe it when it happened. I guess John Harbaugh thought he was going to fool the Cleveland defense since, that's an obvious passing down. They'll never expect us to run the ball up the middle. Only person that looked like a fucking fool was John Harbaugh. Lamar Jackson had a bad game yesterday. Under duress all game, sacked 4 times. I don't want to overreact here, but I'm not too sure about this Ravens team anymore. This isn't the same defense we're used to seeing out of Baltimore. Statistically, the Ravens are a top 5 offense. Actually, I think they rank first in 3 of the 4 main offensive categories. But the damn defense can't stop anyone. Sure, they look great against the Dolphins, and defense played well against rookie quarterback Kyler Murray. But the last 2 weeks, they've been decimated. The AFC North right now, it might just get won by default. The Bungles aren't going to win it. Steelers, 0-3 right now. Who knows what they'll be after Monday Night Football. Battle of winless teams with Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. Somebody's got to win that game. But the Cleveland Browns might win this division by default. Next good thing from the weekend. What the fuck's going on with Jameis Winston? Last 3 weeks, this dude has been the best quarterback in the NFC South. Hell, he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Thrown for nearly 400 yards the past 2 games. Limited his turnovers. This is a completely different Jameis Winston than we've seen throughout his career. I don't know who or what got into him after that Week 1 debacle against the 49ers. But I like what I'm seeing out of this Tampa Bay offense. No one gave this team a chance against the Rams. We had them as one of our NFL plays, getting 9 points. But I told you in that game I was taking the teams out of it. I was betting strictly the number. I did not expect Tampa to go into Los Angeles and run away with this game in the first half. I was completely surprised. This was a total annihilation. I mean, the game was not even close. Pretty much over by halftime. Yeah, the Rams had a little run in the second half, cut it close, but Tampa immediately answered and put this game out of reach. If Jameis Winston continues at this pace, Bruce Arians should be Coach of the Year. Because he's completely turning this dude's career around. And more importantly for Jameis Winston, he's turning it around in a contract year. I was saying after Week 1 that Winston would be bagging groceries after this season, but the Bucs should be 3-1 right now. If their kicker can make a short field goal against the Giants, they win that game. Tampa Bay should be 3-1 right now. I mentioned this on Saturday's show when I was releasing my NFL plays, but something is up with the Los Angeles Rams. The defense can't get stops. Running game has disappeared. Jared Goff is not the same quarterback that he was last season. I made mention of this on Twitter on Sunday, but it seems like defenses in the NFL have caught up to Sean McVay and his offensive schemes. This group was blowing teams out last year. One of the more feared offenses in the league. This year, they're struggling to score against the Cleveland fucking Browns. I know Jared Goff threw for over 500 yards against Tampa, but he was god-awful in that game. He's been a turnover machine the past 2 weeks, thrown 5 interceptions. He only threw 12 interceptions all of last year. Already at 6 this year, and we're only 4 weeks into the season. One of the issues with this Rams team is they get off to sluggish starts in the first quarter. The past 2 seasons, you blink and the Rams are up 14-0. That's not the case in 2019. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL in the first quarter. Only managed 6 points through the first 4 games. This is a defense and a team that's built to play with a lead. They struggle against the pass, which we saw Sunday against Tampa. This defense is designed for the Rams offense to be explosive, to build a lead early. And then the defense can take risks, they can bring multiple blitz packages, put pressure on the quarterback. It's hard to play the type of defense that the Rams want to play when you're down 14-0. Now, I'm seeing people starting to question the big contract Jared Goff received this offseason. I don't think that the offensive struggles are his fault. This team is in desperate need of a running game. Todd Gurley has been a non-factor this year. Dude, he's barely rushed for over 200 yards, and we're going on 5 weeks into the season. This guy used to run through defenses. This year, he's done nothing. The Rams have got to find an answer at running back. I don't know if Todd Gurley is still injured. I don't know what the deal is, but they're going to have to find a running game going forward to alleviate some of the pressure off of Jared Goff. All right, let's get to the bad. Last Tuesday, I said that turnovers would eventually catch up with the Buffalo Bills. And that's exactly what happened on Sunday afternoon. When you play teams like the New York Jets, the Cincinnati Bengals, You can overcome turnovers, especially with a defense like they have in Buffalo. But when you play the elite teams, you have got to protect the football. This team has 10 fucking turnovers already. Every time Buffalo has the ball, I'm expecting a turnover. Let me tell you how good this Bills defense is. They turned the ball over 4 times against New England Sunday. Tom Brady and Bill Belichick in those types of situations almost always make you pay. But the Buffalo defense completely shut down Tom Brady. For the 4th week in a row, they were almost able to overcome multiple turnovers. Tom Brady only threw for 150 yards. His completion percentage was 46%. When was the last time that's happened? He's one of the most accurate passers in the NFL. This doesn't happen to Tom Brady. The Bills defense shut him down. This game should have been a blowout as much as the Bills were giving the ball away. Buffalo might have the best defense in the NFL. I'm dead serious. But the offense was just awful Sunday. I thought once the Patriots went up 13-0 in the first quarter that this game was over. Buffalo's defense only gave up 3 points the rest of the game. 3 points to Tom Brady through 3 quarters. This offense in Buffalo, bottom line, they've got to play better. That's all there is to it. Josh Allen was fucking awful in this game. I think this dude might be colorblind because it seems like every time he throws the ball, it's going into an opposing team's hands. Sacked 4 times, fumbled the fucking ball. If you're on the Buffalo defense, you've got to get fed up with the lackluster play from their offense. This team barely averages 20 points a game. Another thing, does Josh Allen not know how to fucking slide? He got rocked late in the game trying to run for a first down. Instead of getting himself up, he took a beating and got knocked out of the game. Many Bills players and their coaching staff were saying that it was a dirty hit, trying to say that New England quarterback Jonathan Jones should have been ejected from the game. That's bullshit. That hit was clean as fuck. What head coach Sean McDermott needs to be doing, instead of complaining to the media about that hit, is teaching Josh Allen how to fucking slide. That was completely ignorant. Your franchise quarterback going toe-to-toe with a defender. Look how that turned out. Bet Josh Allen doesn't make that mistake again. I really like this Bills team, though. Buffalo is one of your better NFL cities in terms of the fan base. That home crowd always brings the noise. They have been clamoring for a winner in Buffalo for 2 decades now. And they've got a real shot at the playoffs this year. But if they don't start taking better care of the ball offensively, they're going to be in trouble. You cannot turn the ball over 3 and 4 times a game and win consistently in this league. It's never happened. At the end of every season, you look at the worst teams in the NFL at the end of the year. They all have one thing in common: negative turnover ratio. I say this all the time. In a league where the margin of error is so thin, games decided between 3 and 7 points, you cannot give opposing teams extra possessions. If you have a red zone turnover and the other team takes that and scores a touchdown, that is a 10 to 14 point swing. That is huge. They had a chance to win this game in the 4th quarter yesterday. But Matt Barkley, who came in to relieve Josh Allen, threw a red zone interception and threw an interception on the last drive of the game. Turnovers literally killed Buffalo's chances of beating New England and being atop the AFC East. I hope they clean it up in Buffalo because I love watching this defense. Next up for the bad, the Washington Redskins. First 3 weeks of the year, I mentioned this team 0 times. Past 7 days, they've been a topic of conversation on every one of my podcasts. Sure didn't take long for Jay Gruden to insert rookie Dwayne Haskins into the game on Sunday. All that shit talk all week about continuity. Got to stick with Case Keenum. Got to keep with the continuity. All of that was thrown out the window in the 2nd quarter. For the fourth game in a row, Case Keenum was fucking awful. If it weren't for another quarterback that I'm going to talk about in just a second, I'd say that Keenum is the worst quarterback in the NFL right now. This guy had 37 yards, 1 interception through the majority of the first half. It was dreadfully bad. Here's my problem, though. This is why I included this in the bad segment. I came out last week and supported Dwayne Haskins being the starter in Washington. But I feel like Jay Gruden set him up to fail. I don't agree with putting him in during the middle of the game. No practice with the first team offense during the week. Gruden, who was so vocal in support of Keenum all week last week, it looks to me that he put Haskins into a no-win situation to pretty much quiet the critics in D.C. Keenum was on a walking boot all week last week. There was no point in him starting this game. So I don't understand why they just didn't start Dwayne Haskins in the first place. Now, Haskins was awful Sunday. You can't dispute that. He clearly isn't ready to lead this team. But the Redskins aren't going anywhere anyway. They're 0-4. The season is over. Let Dwayne Haskins start. Let him learn. Let him fail. See how he responds. Kyler Murray is struggling mightily right now in Arizona. But he's got the support of his head coach. He's got the support of his team. Dwayne Haskins does not have that right now. He clearly is not Jay Gruden's guy. I saw on the NFL Network this morning where Jay Gruden is thinking about starting Colt fucking McCoy this Sunday against New England. Are you fucking kidding me? Colt McCoy is a proven scrub. This guy has a career record of 7-20. He is so bad that the Cleveland Browns didn't even want him. You've got to let Haskins take his lumps this season and see what you've got with him. You drafted him high for a reason. It's becoming painfully obvious to me that Jay Gruden's tenure with the Redskins is coming to a close. I mean, this is not working. Do I think that fixes the issues they have in Washington? No. If you've kept up with this franchise the past 20 years, you know the problem lies with the ownership. But there's nothing you can do about that. I really feel bad for Dwayne Haskins. This kid was drafted into a bad situation, and it's only going to get worse. If you've listened to any of Gruden's post-game comments after the game yesterday, it's obvious that he doesn't have this young quarterback's back. Seems like he was almost forced to play him on Sunday. Firing Gruden isn't going to fix everything in Washington. But I do think it'll make it better or more comfortable situation for Dwayne Haskins. All right, let's talk about the ugly, my favorite segment. I get to complain about what I didn't like from this weekend. You know I rail on Redskins owner Dan Snyder for being incompetent, but I've got to give him credit for one thing. When Kirk Cousins was pushing him for a big contract, you know, Dan Snyder kept franchise tagging him. And then when it was time for Kirk Cousins to get that big contract, Dan Snyder was smart enough to let him walk away in free agency. Wasn't a popular move at the time in Washington, but Dan Snyder knew what the rest of us know now, especially those in Minnesota, that Kirk Cousins is the worst fucking quarterback in the National Football League. It boggles my mind how this guy's making $28 million a year. It seems like Cousins is playing the quarterback position blind. Wide open receivers, he can't find them. If he does happen to notice them, the pass is so inaccurate or overthrown, they have no chance to catch the fucking ball. Stands in the pocket like a statue just waiting to get sacked. Can't throw the ball downfield. Matter of fact, I don't know one fucking thing that Kirk Cousins does that is good. He's that fucking bad. No wonder he's 4-27 against teams with a winning record throughout his career. For 57 minutes of that game on Sunday in Chicago, he failed to lead this team on a scoring drive. The Bears finally had some mercy on him. They allowed him to score a garbage touchdown at the end of the game. This is completely inexcusable. Minnesota's got two of the best wide receivers in the league. You have a dynamic running back in Dalvin Cook. The defense in Minnesota is really good. This team has all the tools in place to make a playoff run, except at the one position where it matters most. Kirk Cousins is single-handedly ruining the Minnesota Vikings season. They're 2-2. They might as well be 0-4 because this team is not going to the playoffs. Now, you think I'm being overdramatic? Listen to what wide receiver Adam Thielen said after Sunday's game against Chicago. Quote, "At some point, you're not going to be able to run the ball for 180 yards, even with the best running back in the NFL. And that's when you have to be able to throw the ball. You have to be able to make plays. You have to be able to hit the deep balls. You have to do that because otherwise it's too easy for teams to just tee up and rush the quarterback. We have to be able to run the ball and pass the ball." End quote. Adam Thielen's being nice here, trying not to throw Kirk Cousins all the way under the bus. Let me translate to you what he's actually saying. Our quarterback sucks. I was wide open deep and had a touchdown, but this guy overthrew me by 5 yards. Other teams know our quarterback sucks and he can't hit a pass, so they just rush everyone and sack his ass. That's basically what Adam Thielen is saying. Stephon Diggs was visibly frustrated on the sideline during the game yesterday. When asked about Cousins after the game in the locker room, he just stayed silent. Let's put this into perspective. Kirk Cousins, a quarterback who makes $28 million a year, was outplayed Sunday by career backup Chase Daniel. The Vikings had a prime opportunity to steal a division game here in Chicago. Mitchell Trubisky injured his shoulder, I think it was on the first drive of the game. All Minnesota needed was a mediocre performance from Kirk Cousins. That's it. That's all. Just go out there and be average. This guy could not find a way to beat Chase Daniel. At this point, you've got to wonder how long Mike Zimmer is going to stick with Cousins as a starter. The bad news is their backup is Sean Mannion. Never heard of him? Yeah, most people haven't. He's only started one game in his 5-year career. He was god-awful in that game. But at this point, he couldn't play worse than Kirk Cousins has played during his time in Minnesota. This team is desperately missing Case Keenum. And I can't believe I'm saying that with how bad he's played since he left the Vikings a couple of years ago. But the Vikings should have kept him. He knew how to run this offense. I don't know what it was. The chemistry between Case Keenum, Stephon Diggs, and Adam Thielen, they had a chemistry, and that offense was very good. I mean, they were one game away from the Super Bowl. Right now, it's a complete disaster in Minnesota. I have no faith that Kirk Cousins can rectify this. He'll be selling used cars this time next year. All right, last thing I want to talk about before I get out of here. I am fucking fed up with college football. I've had it with these bullshit games, these bullshit schedules. Saturday was blowout city in college football. Of the top 25 teams, the average margin of victory on Saturday was 26 points. Who wants to watch this garbage? The marquee game of the week on ABC was Ohio State at Nebraska. ESPN was hyping this game up like it was going to be a big-time showdown between two high-powered teams. It was complete garbage. It was 38-0 at halftime. I heard Kirk Herbstreit snoring during the broadcast midway through the second quarter. It was that fucking boring. These conferences are too top-heavy. Conference schedules, they used to mean something. They used to have at least some challenging games. Right now, Ohio State, far and away, will win the Big Ten. Clemson will win the ACC. I think LSU will win the SEC. At least the SEC is a little bit better. They've got 4 good teams. But they don't all play each other. No surprise there. God forbid you have to play a tough team in college football. That wouldn't be fucking right. I'm sick and tired of hearing these fans from Alabama or Ohio State talking about how great their teams are. Alabama gave up 31 points at home to a true freshman quarterback on Saturday. To an Ole Miss team that doesn't have a player that would qualify for a water boy on an NFL roster. You gave up fucking 31 points to them. Yet all year long, all I'll hear about is this dynasty in Tuscaloosa. How many national championships Nick Saban has won? Champions of what? They should be embarrassed they didn't beat Ole Miss 55-0. If I'm on Alabama's defense, I'm not showing up to class this week because I gave up 31 points to a team that had no business scoring on us. Ole Miss struggled against Southeast Louisiana, for Christ's sake, and put up 31 points on Alabama on the road? If Daniel Cormier or Brock Lesnar beat my ass in a UFC fight, does that make them a champion? That's the equivalent to a team like Florida playing something called Towson on Saturday. Florida beat Towson 38-0. Should go down as a loss for Florida, in my opinion. Matter of fact, to even the playing field, since these big programs refuse to play equal competition, they should start making them beat the Vegas point spread to qualify for a win. Maybe that would make things a little bit more interesting in college football. I come on here every Tuesday and have absolutely nothing to talk about in the world of college football. That's because nothing happens. Every weekend is the same thing. Ohio State defeats the Future Bartenders of America. Alabama defeated the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I was at a bar Saturday watching football. Of course, the crappy-ass, non-entertaining Alabama game was on one of the TVs. Around the third quarter, they do a panoramic view of the stadium. It's half empty. One of the redneck Bama fans had the nerve to complain about, people who paid for tickets leaving the game early. They stay at that game and support our boys. Who the fuck wants to sit in 90-degree heat and watch a bloodbath? I was actually offered a free ticket to that game. I laughed when it was offered to me. You could not pay me to go sit in that heat and watch that garbage that Alabama puts on the field. Nick Saban should be embarrassed at this schedule. We are 5 fucking weeks into the college football season, and Alabama has not played a team with a winning fucking record. They haven't played a ranked team all year. They don't play a ranked team until November. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here because it seems like I complain about college football every week. And I do. But no one else talks about this. Every Saturday morning, ESPN hypes up these meaningless games on College Game Day. They were in Lincoln, Nebraska on Saturday, talking about the so-called showdown between Ohio State and Nebraska. Are you fucking kidding me? Until people in mainstream media start calling out these big programs, start complaining about how boring college football has become, nothing is going to change. But you're not going to hear this on ESPN or the SEC Network or FS1. No. God forbid they had to actually report the truth. Then you have idiots argue with me, talking about how I'm wrong, how great college football is, how exciting. Get the fuck out of here. I'm sick of this shit. I love college football. But I just want it to be entertaining to watch. And right now it's not. Alright, I'm out of here, guys. Hit the like and subscribe button. Leave a comment in the section below. Let me know how you feel about the past weekend. Trying to figure out how I'm going to do the podcast this coming up weekend. I'll be in New Orleans over the weekend, so I don't know if I'm going to combine the college football and NFL bets and release them both on Friday morning, or keep them separate and release the college on Friday and the NFL on Saturday like I usually do. But I'll let you guys know about that on Friday morning. Follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Have a good week. I'll see you guys on Friday morning.